Good day, guys. This is your tutor engineer. Today I'm gonna do a very short video on trigonometric ratio graphs of cos and sin. So let's start with it. In the diagram below you have the function of f, right? So in the diagram you can locate here is the function f, which would be this one, and then that would be the cos graph, and then g, function g is the other one, which is a sin graph. Are drawn for x is the element of minus 140 to 240. So this is our domain starting from here and then ending up to 240. Now let's read the first question. Write down the amplitude for g. Okay, the amplitude for g, that should be much easier. It's either you can look at the graph itself or you can look at the function. The function has minus 2 in front, so that will give us the amplitude of 2. So remember, the amplitude is a distance from when the graph is from the x-axis all the way to the peak. So the amplitude, the distance from the x-axis is 0 to 2, so that will be a 2 there. So we can write the amplitude is just simple 2. And then determine the period for f. Okay, f is the other graph, which is the cos graph. We can have a look at the graph itself. Okay, the number here, that is the coefficient of x, is the one that determines the period. The normal cos graph has got a period of 360 if you were to draw it. As you know it, the normal cos graph will look something like this. It completes one revolution at 360. Now if you multiply the coefficient of x by 1/2, you are kind of doubling that 360. So it's like you're multiplying that 360 by 2, which will give you in return the period of 720, right? So I hope you understood that. So that will be the period here, 720 degrees. And then 5.3, determine the values of A and P. Okay, let's look for values of A and P. So here is the value of A for the cos graph. So that would be the amplitude of the cos graph. So if you look at the graph here, it is shifted down by half a unit. Okay, so that will play a part, obviously. So here is the cos graph, the graph of f. It's supposed to have been crossing the y-axis at -1, and then if it didn't have that -1/2 shift, so because it has -1/2 shift, that means it shifted down from the -1 to cross here at -3/2, or at just -1,5. So that will give us the amplitude for the cos graph from the x-axis to the peak. It's either you can use this distance to say it's 1, or you can just draw an ordinary line here, like an imaginary line. That's going to be -1/2. That's when you're going to be dropping it from all the way to -1,5. It will basically give you the same answer. So whichever way that will suit you, you can do so. So we can conclude that the value of A here is 1. That's just the amplitude. And then for the value of P, now let me just discuss about P a little, but let me just change a color for that. The value of P for the graph of sin, it's actually shifting the graph either to the left hand side or to the right hand side. So remember, if you've got a plus here, that means you're actually shifting the graph to the left. right? And then if you've got a minus, that means you're shifting the graph to the right. So you just remember that. So the normal minus sign x graph, so the graph like this, without shifting it to the left or right, would look something like that, right? It will go something like this, then crossing the 180 degrees, and then it will continue this side as well. So you can see here the normal graph, the one that I've just drawn now, was shifted by 60 degree to the right hand side. So if you're shifting the graph to the right hand side, that means the value of P is going to be negative. So here you're going to have P is equal to minus 60 because the graph shifted to the right by 60 degrees units. Now let's go to question 4. Question 4 says, for which values of x is f of x times g of x less than or equal to 0? So less than or equal to is key. So now let's have a look at the graph. It's kind of crowded. Let me just relieve the pressure here. I think, yeah, that it should do. It should do like this. Now, if you multiply the f of x graph times the g of x graph is less than or equal to 0. That means it's when the two graphs have got opposing signs, or like when this graph of f is negative here, and then the graph of g is positive. So because multiplying a negative sign and the positive sign will give you a negative number. So our domain is going to be starting from here, right, from minus 20, because graph G is going to be positive from there when graph F is remaining negative. So that will go on until 60 degrees, right? So here we can say f of x times g of x is less than or equal to 0 for the domain of minus 120 degrees to 60 degrees. Just here, like this, those will be all the values of x. Now, also f times g equals to 0 is also relevant. So you can see here at exactly minus 240. When you multiply the graph of f and g is also going to give you a 0. So also we can say or x is equal to minus 240 for that reason. And also on the right hand side at 240, both graphs are 0. So 0 times 0 is also going to give us a 0. So we can say or x is equal to positive 240. Okay, that should be the answer for 5.4. And then let's do the last question. H of x is equal to the graph of cos, this graph here, this function, and h of x is equal to g of x. Write down the possible values of k, or a possible value of k, just one value, when we can manipulate this graph to, which is graph of h, to exactly coincide with graph of g. The easiest way is to draw the two cos graph before you shift it. That should be the easiest way out. Okay, let me just redraw it before the shift, and then I'll be able to determine the value of k. So if you were to draw the graph of, remember, is it minus or negative? Is it minus or positive? So I'm going to draw a graph of 2 cos x, right? It's positive. So it's going to look something like, starting at the amplitude of what is it, at 2, then it's going to cross the x-axis here at 90, and then the minimum value for 8 is going to be at 180. So the graph, of course, the normal 2 cos graph will look something like this. So this is 2 cos x graph before the shift. So if I were to make sure that it aligns exactly with this graph of G, that means it will have to shift to the left by how many units? By 30 units. Since this is 90 to 60, the difference between the two is 30 degrees units. So that's the value of K. The value of K in this case, it's going to be negative since we're shifting the graph to the left. So we can just say here, therefore, K is equal to minus 30 degrees. And that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed this lesson. If you liked it, please hit the like button. Consider subscribing. Cheers.